Have you ever felt that chill in your gut when someone speaks and you just know something is off? That subtle alarm inside you is rarely wrong. Today, I want to talk about a truth most people shy away from. Words have power. Words can lift, but they can also cage, manipulate, and harm. And there are certain words that signal danger, words that should never be ignored. You're overreacting. It's a phrase that sneaks into conversations like a slow poison, soft at first, almost caring, almost concerned, and yet it carries a weight designed to shrink you, to make your instincts feel unreliable. When someone tells you that, it's never really about the situation, and it's never really about you. It's about power, about control, about creating doubt where once there was clarity. It's a manipulation disguised as advice, a subtle way to chip away at your confidence and make you question the validity of your own emotions. Think about it for a moment. Every time you express discomfort, concern, fear, or even anger, and the response is, "You're overreacting," what is actually happening is that your experience is being invalidated. Your mind tells you, maybe I am too much, maybe I am imagining this, maybe I should stay quiet next time. And that's exactly what the manipulator wants. The phrase is not neutral, it's not a casual comment, it's an emotional trap. It is a way to control the narrative of your feelings, a way to dictate what you should feel and how intensely you should feel it. You might start to notice that your voice, your reactions, your boundaries are constantly being measured against someone else's idea of acceptable behavior. Every word you speak, every boundary you set, every emotion you express is weighed, judged, and often dismissed, leaving you questioning your own judgment. And this is dangerous because once you start doubting your own instincts, the line between reality and manipulation blurs. You begin to second guess your perception, your intuition, your very ability to understand what is healthy for you and what is not. This is why the alarm bell that goes off inside you when someone repeatedly tells you that you're overreacting must never be silenced. That inner voice, the one that feels tension in the gut, unease in the chest, hesitation in the mind, is not trivial. It is a compass, a signal pointing toward danger, toward boundaries being crossed, toward control being exercised over you in ways that are invisible yet deeply impactful. Over time, the repetition of this phrase can erode self-trust, the kind of trust that is essential for emotional freedom. You may start to apologize for your reactions, to shrink your emotions, to minimize experiences that matter deeply to you, all because someone else wants to feel more comfortable with their power over you. And in that discomfort, in that effort to minimize yourself, you lose pieces of your confidence, your assertiveness, your clarity. You lose the sharpness of your instincts, the strength of your voice, the courage to say what you feel and act according to what you know is right. This phrase is dangerous not because it is loud or violent, but because it is quiet, insidious, repeated so often that it becomes part of your internal dialogue. And the moment you accept it as truth, you hand over control of your perception, your emotional reality, your judgment. Learning to recognize this phrase for what it truly is, a tool of manipulation, is the first step toward reclaiming your power. It is not about silencing your emotions. It is not about overreacting or underreacting. It is about acknowledging that your feelings are valid, that your instincts are real, that your perception of reality is not flawed simply because someone else finds it inconvenient or challenging. Every time you hear, "You're overreacting," you must pause and remember that the truth of your experience is yours alone. Your feelings are legitimate, your instincts are sharp, and your perception deserves respect. No one else has the authority to determine whether your reaction is valid or not. The courage to honor your emotional truth, to recognize the danger in dismissive words, and to act according to your instincts is the essence of self-respect and empowerment. It is the refusal to shrink, to apologize unnecessarily, to silence yourself in the face of manipulation, and the commitment to stand firmly in your reality. You'll never find anyone like me. It's a phrase that slips into conversations with a smile, with charm, with the illusion of admiration, yet behind it hides a dangerous web of control. On the surface, it seems flattering. It feels like recognition, a rare acknowledgement of uniqueness. It feels like importance, like you are being told that your presence is valued in a way that no one else could match. But look closer. This is not about your value. It is about limitation, about dependency, about creating an invisible cage around your life. It's a subtle tactic that attempts to make you doubt your worth outside of this person, to make you feel that leaving or seeking more is foolish or impossible. The danger lies in the way it preys on your need for validation, your desire for connection, your fear of loneliness. It plants a seed of thought. Maybe they're right. Maybe nobody else will see me the way they do. Maybe this is my only chance at being truly understood. And once that seed is planted, it grows into hesitation, into compromise, into the erosion of your freedom. The phrase is a masterclass in emotional manipulation because it targets your vulnerability and disguises it as flattery. It tells you that uniqueness equals indispensability, that admiration equals control, and that your world is somehow incomplete without the validation being offered. But think carefully about this. No one has the right to measure your worth against themselves. Your value is not a comparison, a competition, or a limited commodity. It is not something that can be hoarded, withheld, or defined by the convenience of another person's ego. Yet, when this phrase is used repeatedly, it can create a false dependence that makes you question every decision, every desire, every ambition that exists outside of this person's influence. It quietly teaches you that your autonomy is negotiable, that your confidence is fragile, and that your self-respect is conditional. And the irony is that it often comes wrapped in concern, in love, in charm, in the illusion of protection. It makes you feel special while simultaneously shrinking your world, narrowing your perspective, and limiting your choices. You may start to notice a pattern. Your ambitions are subtly questioned, your friendships are undermined, your instincts about your own desires are questioned, all under the guise of uniqueness. And over time, this can erode the very foundation of self-trust, the confidence to believe that you are enough, that you can thrive independently, that your life can flourish outside of the validation being offered. Recognizing this phrase for what it truly is, a tool of subtle control, is an act of courage. It is the ability to see beyond charm, beyond flattery, beyond the sweet words that sound like praise but feel like chains. It is about understanding that no one can define your value or limit your potential without your consent. Your worth is inherent, not negotiable. Your uniqueness is not dependent on being tied to someone else's ego or narrative, and your freedom is not something that can be threatened with a well-placed sentence. The moment you acknowledge this, the power of the words begins to fade, the allure diminishes, the cage loses its walls. You realize that admiration does not equal control, that love does not equal limitation, and that your life is yours to live fully, fiercely, and unapologetically. Every time you hear, "You'll never find anyone like me," it is essential to pause and recognize the subtle attempt to define your world, to limit your options, to convince you that you cannot thrive without this person's presence. The courage to resist this manipulation, to honor your independence, and to act according to your truth is a declaration of self-respect and empowerment. It is the refusal to allow charm to blind you, flattery to manipulate you, or uniqueness to become a cage. It's your fault. These three words carry more weight than most people realize. They are sharp, concise, and devastating in their subtlety. When someone repeatedly tells you that it's your fault, even for things beyond your control, they are teaching you to carry burdens that are not yours. Blame is a weapon disguised as truth, a way to shift responsibility, to make you question your judgment, and to undermine your confidence. At first, it may feel small, like a momentary accusation, something you can dismiss. But repeated often enough, it becomes a pattern, a force that reshapes the way you see yourself. You start to measure every action, every thought, every decision against the standard of someone else's approval, constantly asking, did I do something wrong? Could I have prevented this? And the insidious part is that the blame is rarely constructive. It is not meant to help you grow or improve. It is meant to weaken you, to keep you questioning, doubting, and apologizing unnecessarily. It creates an internal cycle where your energy is spent defending yourself instead of living freely, thinking clearly, or pursuing what matters to you. The danger lies in the way it attacks your sense of reality. If you hear enough times that everything is your fault, you begin to internalize it. You start to believe that the world's problems, the conflicts, the frustrations, are somehow linked to your inadequacy. And when your perception is clouded by self-blame, manipulation becomes easier. You may excuse behavior that is unacceptable, tolerate disrespect, or ignore warning signs because your mind has been conditioned to accept fault as an intrinsic part of yourself. Recognizing this pattern is the first step toward freedom. Understanding that blame is not always a reflection of truth, but often a tool of control, allows you to reclaim your power. Your responsibility ends where manipulation begins. Your accountability is not a blank check for someone else to dictate your worth or your actions. Every time someone tries to convince you that you are the source of every problem, you must pause and evaluate the situation objectively, without emotion, without fear. It is not easy because blame is designed to trigger guilt, shame, and fear, emotions that can cloud judgment and erode confidence. But clarity comes when you separate fact from accusation, reality from manipulation, your truth from someone else's attempt to dominate it. The moment you recognize that it's your fault is often a weapon rather than an observation, you begin to break free from the emotional chains that have been placed around your self-esteem. You learn to stand firm, to question narratives that do not serve you, and to assert boundaries without apology. Blame should not silence you, shrink you, or diminish your perception of your own value. It should never make you feel unworthy of respect, understanding, or compassion. When this phrase is repeated, it is not an invitation to reflect, it is an attempt to control, to distort your sense of responsibility, to convince you that your worth is conditional on someone else's perspective. The courage to resist this manipulation, to honor your truth, and to separate yourself from unjust accusations is a declaration of self-respect and autonomy. It is a commitment to recognize your own value, to trust your judgment, and to refuse to accept guilt for circumstances that are not solely yours to bear. Each time you hear, "It's your fault," it is an opportunity to pause, to see the intent behind the words, and to reclaim your power, refusing to allow someone else's need to control, dominate, or belittle, to define your reality, your self-worth, or your ability to live freely, confidently, and authentically. You're too sensitive. Those words sound almost harmless at first, almost like a critique meant to be constructive, almost like an observation. But beneath the surface lies a subtle attempt to weaken you, to make you doubt the very nature of your empathy, your compassion, your emotions. Sensitivity is not weakness. It is not a flaw to be corrected or minimized. It is a sign of awareness, of humanity, of the ability to perceive and respond to the nuances of life that others may overlook. When someone says you're too sensitive, they are not pointing out a problem in you. They are attempting to control the way you express yourself, to dictate which emotions are acceptable and which are inconvenient. Repeated often enough, this phrase teaches you to silence your reactions, to minimize your feelings, to question your instincts, and to hide the parts of yourself that make you alive, vibrant, and perceptive. You may start to notice patterns whenever you express discomfort, sadness, or even joy in a way that feels natural to you. the response is dismissal, critique, or ridicule. You're too sensitive becomes a shield to protect someone else from accountability, from discomfort, or from confronting their own actions. It is a phrase that shifts the focus from behavior to character, from action to emotion, and in doing so, it manipulates you into thinking that the problem lies within your feelings rather than in the situation at hand. Sensitivity is the gateway to empathy, connection, and understanding. It allows you to feel deeply, to perceive subtleties, to respond with care, and to form meaningful bonds. When someone attacks that, they are trying to reduce your power, to make you question the validity of your own perception, and to convince you that your emotional responses are inconvenient or excessive. Over time, this can erode your self-trust. You begin to question whether you are overstepping, overthinking, or overreacting simply because your emotions do not align with someone else's comfort zone. You may start to doubt your right to feel deeply, to care intensely, and to react authentically to the world around you. Recognizing the danger in this phrase is essential. It is not just about words, it is about the intent behind them. The goal is control, not insight. The goal is to make you smaller, quieter, and more malleable so that your natural emotional responses no longer challenge or disrupt someone else's convenience. The moment you understand this, you begin to reclaim your emotional sovereignty. You begin to honor the depth of your feelings, the validity of your reactions, and the integrity of your perception. You learn that sensitivity is strength, not liability, and that caring deeply does not make you weak. It makes you powerful, intuitive, and alive. It allows you to set boundaries, to recognize injustice, to connect meaningfully with others, and to navigate the world with clarity and authenticity. Every time someone tells you that you're too sensitive, it is an opportunity to reflect on the intention behind the words, to discern whether the critique is constructive or manipulative, and to reaffirm your right to feel deeply, to respond fully, and to honor your emotional truth. The courage to embrace sensitivity, to resist manipulation, and to stand in your emotional power is an act of self-respect. It is a declaration that your feelings matter, that your instincts are valid, and that your emotional awareness is not negotiable. It is a refusal to let someone else define the boundaries of your heart, to dictate the intensity of your care, or to make you feel ashamed for the way you experience life. In this way, sensitivity becomes a shield, a compass, and a source of empowerment, guiding you to recognize manipulation, honor your instincts, and live unapologetically in your truth, fully embracing the depth, complexity, and beauty of your emotional world. Nobody else will love you like I do. Those words are often wrapped in warmth, tenderness, and the illusion of devotion. At first, they sound flattering, comforting, almost like a promise of exclusivity and care. But behind that veneer lies a subtle, dangerous attempt to control, to isolate, to manipulate. Love, when genuine, should empower. It should expand your world, not confine it. It should celebrate your freedom, your independence, your ability to grow, not threaten it. When someone says this repeatedly, it is not about love, it is about limitation. It is a statement designed to make you doubt your ability to find love, acceptance, or care outside of their presence. It creates dependency under the guise of devotion, a false sense of irreplaceability that pressures you to stay, to compromise, and to silence the parts of yourself that challenge them. Listen carefully. No one has the authority to dictate the scope of your life, your choices, or your potential for happiness. When you hear, "Nobody else will love you like I do," pause and consider what is being implied. It is a message that your freedom, your connections, your joy, and your worth are somehow incomplete without this person's affirmation. It is a trap, a subtle manipulation that attempts to make you feel weak, inadequate, or unworthy of love elsewhere. Over time, it erodes self-confidence, fosters insecurity, and cultivates a sense of obligation that has nothing to do with genuine care. You may begin to question your instincts, your judgment, and even your capacity to make decisions independently. The mind starts to weigh every action against an invisible standard of approval. The heart becomes cautious, the soul hesitates, and the sense of personal freedom diminishes. This is why it is essential to recognize that words alone, no matter how sweet or emotionally charged, do not define love. True love uplifts, respects boundaries, and encourages autonomy. It does not isolate, coerce, or convince someone that their happiness is contingent upon staying. Being told that nobody else will love you like this is not an affirmation. It is a tether, a reminder that you are expected to remain confined within a narrative that benefits someone else's control more than it nurtures your growth. Understanding this distinction is critical to reclaiming power and clarity. You must recognize that love should never feel like a limitation. It should not make you doubt your self-worth, compromise your freedom, or question your ability to thrive outside of someone else's presence. Every individual has the capacity to experience deep, meaningful, reciprocal love, and no one has the right to make you believe otherwise. The courage to step back, to examine the intention behind these words, and to act according to your truth is an act of liberation. It is an affirmation that your life, your choices, your heart, and your joy belong to you, and you alone. It is a refusal to allow manipulation disguised as devotion to dictate your actions or cloud your judgment. The moment you honor this truth, the power of the statement begins to fade. The sense of threat diminishes. The illusion of confinement dissolves, and you reclaim your autonomy, your ability to love freely, and your right to seek relationships that celebrate your independence rather than limit it. Recognizing the danger in "nobody else will love you like I do" is not a rejection of love. It is an embrace of self-respect, clarity, and personal freedom. It is the courage to understand that love is not possession, devotion is not control, and your worth is never contingent on someone else's validation. Acting on this awareness empowers you to establish boundaries, trust your instincts, and live authentically, prioritizing your emotional well-being and the integrity of your relationships while refusing to be confined by fear, manipulation, or false exclusivity. Trust your instincts and prioritize your self-respect. These are not mere suggestions, they are essential tools for survival in a world where words can be weaponized, where charm can disguise manipulation, and where subtle patterns of control can erode your confidence without you even realizing it. Instinct is the inner compass that has guided humans through danger long before reason caught up, the quiet voice that signals discomfort before your mind has processed the details, the gut feeling that something is wrong even when everything seems calm on the surface. Self-respect, on the other hand, is the armor that protects you from allowing that inner signal to be silenced, diminished, or dismissed. When you combine a keen awareness of your instincts with a firm commitment to honoring your self-worth, you create a foundation of empowerment that is nearly unshakable. Ignoring that instinct, listening to manipulation disguised as charm, or allowing words that diminish your worth to take root can lead you down a path of compromise and regret. The mind is trained to rationalize, to justify, to soften danger, to convince yourself that discomfort is imagined, that boundaries are too rigid, that conflict is overblown. But instincts are rarely wrong. They are the internal radar that detects inconsistency, deceit, and emotional manipulation long before conscious thought can articulate it. Every time you feel that sudden tension, that hesitation, that flicker of unease, it is an invitation to pause, to reflect, and to consider whether your boundaries are being tested, whether your autonomy is being challenged, and whether your peace is at stake. Self-respect amplifies that instinct. It allows you to act on it without fear, guilt, or over-apology. It teaches you that you do not need permission to leave a situation, to assert a boundary, to prioritize your well-being, and to honor the truths that your inner voice has been signaling all along. When you trust yourself, You stop seeking external validation for every decision. You stop letting words, charm, or flattery dictate the limits of your actions. You begin to recognize patterns of manipulation before they take hold, to identify when praise is a trap, when criticism is a weapon, and when affection is being used as leverage. Self-respect gives clarity, the ability to distinguish between what is genuinely nurturing and what is subtly controlling, between genuine care and hidden agendas, between freedom and constraint disguised as devotion. Trusting your instincts also fosters resilience. It teaches you that even in moments of uncertainty, you have the capacity to sense danger, to weigh risks, and to act decisively in your own interest. It reminds you that you are entitled to protect your emotional, mental, and physical space without justification, apology, or fear of judgment. Every moment you honor your instincts and uphold your self-respect, you reinforce the boundaries that define who you are, what you tolerate, and how you allow others to treat you. It is a constant practice, a commitment to listen deeply, to feel acutely, and to respond intentionally. The combination of instinct and self-respect creates a shield that is both proactive and reactive, a guide that leads you away from harm and toward empowerment. It is the difference between walking through life defenseless, vulnerable to manipulation, and walking with clarity, confidence, and unwavering authority over your own world. Instincts are signals, self-respect is action, and together they form the foundation of freedom, wisdom, and personal sovereignty, allowing you to navigate relationships, challenges, and choices with precision, courage, and uncompromising dignity. The truth is simple: words matter, and the way they are used can either lift you or bind you. When someone speaks to diminish, manipulate, or control, the danger is real, even if it is subtle. Each phrase we have explored today is a warning, a signal, a signpost pointing toward boundaries that must never be ignored. Your instincts are your compass, your self-respect is your shield, and together they give you the clarity and courage to act without hesitation. You do not need approval to walk away, explanation to protect your peace, or permission to honor your worth. Recognizing manipulation, trusting your inner voice, and valuing yourself above empty words is not arrogance. It is survival. It is the courage to reclaim your freedom, to insist on dignity, to refuse confinement in any form. Life does not ask you to tolerate chains disguised as care, nor should you ever silence the truth of your emotions to comfort someone else's ego. Run when the signs appear. Step away from those who try to define your value. Limit your freedom or erase your instincts. Embrace the power of your sensitivity, the clarity of your judgment, and the inviolable strength of your self-respect. This is not just a lesson about words. It is a lesson about your life, your heart, and your right to stand fully, unapologetically, and unshakably in your own truth.